I never thought I would find myself in a situation where I'd be questioning everything I believed about my marriage. My name is Mike, and I'm a 38-year-old dad to an amazing 7-year-old Jake. My wife, Sarah, and I had been married for almost a decade, and honestly, life was good, or so I thought. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I believed in us. That was until I started noticing the little things, the signs that eventually led me to a devastating discovery. It started a few months ago. At first, it was subtle. Sarah was working late a lot more often. She'd come home tired, claiming she had to grade papers or plan lessons for her students. She is a school teacher, after all, and I know how demanding that job can be. But when the late nights started turning into weekends where she needed to catch up, my gut began to twist in an uncomfortable way. I brushed it off, convinced I was being paranoid, but deep down, something didn't sit right. Then there were the changes in her behavior. She started dressing differently, wearing these tighter clothes that I hadn't seen before, as if she were trying to impress someone. When I would comment on how nice she looked, she'd just laugh it off, saying she was just trying to feel good about herself. I wanted to support her, but I couldn't shake this feeling that something was off. The intimacy between us dwindled, and our conversations became more surface level, a mere echo of what we once had. One evening, I got home early and found her phone buzzing incessantly on the kitchen counter. I picked it up to silence it, but as I did, I noticed a new name flashing on the screen: Mr. Thompson. I paused for a moment, recalling that Jake's teacher was named Mr. Thompson. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe it was just a school-related message. But the unsettling feeling gnawed at me, and I couldn't help but feel that I needed to investigate further. The real turning point came that weekend when I stumbled upon Sarah's messages. I had been looking for my old baseball glove in our bedroom and found her phone under a pile of clothes. Curiosity got the better of me. I unlocked it. Thankfully, she never changed her passcode, and scrolled through her texts. What I found made my stomach drop. There were flirty exchanges with Mr. Thompson, peppered with emojis that made my skin crawl. They were discussing after-school meetings and other suggestive comments that left no doubt in my mind. She was having an affair with Jake's teacher. I felt a whirlwind of emotions crash over me: anger, betrayal, and a suffocating sadness. I had devoted my life to this woman, and here she was, betraying me not only with another man but with someone responsible for my son's education. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't ready for the emotional storm that would follow. That night I confronted her. I laid it all out: her late nights, her new wardrobe, the messages. I could see the color drain from her face as I spoke. She tried to deny it at first, her eyes darting around, searching for a way out. But as I pressed further, she began spinning a web of lies that made my head spin. "It's not what you think, Mike. Mr. Thompson is just helping me with my teaching methods. We're just friends." Her excuses felt flimsy, like a paper shield against a torrent. I could see the guilt writ large on her face, but she kept insisting I was being dramatic and unreasonable. I wanted to scream, to shake her and make her understand the depth of my hurt, but I stood there, fighting the urge to break down. In that moment, my entire world felt like it was crumbling around me. The woman I loved, the mother of my child, was lying right to my face. I couldn't wrap my head around what to do next. I felt lost, like a ship adrift at sea without a compass. I needed to think clearly, but the emotional weight was suffocating. As I sat there, I realized I had a choice to make. I could either let this destroy me or take control of my life and my son's future. I didn't want Jake to grow up in a toxic environment, and I knew deep down that I had to act. It was time to make a decision about how to move forward. The days following our confrontation were a blur. I barely slept, and each day felt like an eternity. Sarah tried to reach out, but I was cold and distant. I needed space to think, to process everything that had just unraveled. I would wake up to find her sitting on the edge of the bed, tears in her eyes, begging for my forgiveness or trying to convince me that it was just a passing phase, that she had made a mistake. But I wasn't ready to listen to her apologies. The pain was too fresh. I threw myself into work, focusing on my tasks and putting on a brave face for my colleagues. But inside, I was a wreck. Every time I encountered Jake, His innocent laughter cut through me like a knife. He had no idea what was happening behind closed doors. I felt like I was living a double life, a devoted father in front of my son and a shattered husband at home. Each evening, I'd return home, feeling the weight of dread as I walked through the door. Sarah had taken to cooking elaborate dinners, trying to woo me back, but the smell of her cooking only made my stomach turn. The love I once felt for her had been tainted by betrayal. I started noticing other things too, the way she would glance at her phone, how she seemed overly focused on her appearance. There was no doubt in my mind. She was still in contact with Mr. Thompson. One particular night, after she had poured her heart out about how she was so sorry and never meant for anything to happen, I decided enough was enough. I needed to confront her again, but this time I wanted proof of her ongoing deception. I knew that if I confronted her with evidence, it would be harder for her to spin her lies. My mind raced with ideas as I plotted my next move. I devised a plan to catch them in the act. I started by casually dropping hints about meeting up with a friend after work, which allowed me to leave the house earlier without raising suspicion. The next day, I left work early, hoping to catch them together. My heart raced as I drove to the school, wondering if I'd really find anything. I parked a few blocks away and walked towards the teacher's lounge. As I approached, I noticed some teachers gathered outside, laughing and chatting. I peered through the window, my heart pounding in my chest. And there they were, Sarah and Mr. Thompson, sitting closely together, laughing over coffee, their body language much too intimate for my comfort. I felt bile rise up in my throat and I could hardly breathe. I wanted to march in there and confront them right then and there, but I held back. I needed to remain composed and gather concrete evidence. After what felt like an eternity, I managed to catch a glimpse of them leaning in close, sharing whispers. My heart shattered all over again. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. It was one thing to hear the words, but seeing it with my own eyes was like a punch in the gut. I knew I had to leave before they noticed me, but the pain lingered like a heavy fog. When I got home, I was filled with rage and sorrow. I wanted to confront her with the truth I had seen, but I needed to wait for the right moment. That night, Sarah was in the living room, scrolling through her phone, her eyes lighting up at something. I felt the fire inside me grow, an urge to unleash all of my pent-up emotions. I finally decided I would take control of the situation. "Sarah," I said, my voice steady but cold, "we need to talk." She looked up, surprise written all over her face. "What's wrong, Mike? Don't play dumb with me. I saw you and Mr. Thompson together at the school today." Her expression faltered, and for the first time I saw genuine fear in her eyes. "What?" she stammered. "That was just a work meeting. You have to believe me." "I saw the way you two were together, Sarah. You think I'm that naive?" I pressed, feeling the anger boiling beneath my skin. "How could you betray me like this? How could you betray Jake?" I couldn't hold back the pain that seeped into my voice. She opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water, her eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I thought it was just harmless flirting. You've been so distant and I was lonely." Her excuses felt like daggers, each one cutting deeper. "Lonely?" I spat back, my fists clenched. "So you thought cheating was the answer? You didn't even think of how this would affect our son?" Tears streamed down her face as she tried to justify her actions. I felt a part of me wanting to forgive her, to understand, but the reality of her betrayal kept blocking that path. I couldn't believe I was listening to her excuses. It was as if I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. In that moment, I had to make a choice. Would I allow her to keep spinning her lies, or would I stand my ground? As her sobs echoed off the walls, I felt a flicker of resolve ignite within me. I was done being the victim. It was time to take a stand for my family, even if it meant dismantling the life we had built together. I took a deep breath and made my decision. I was not going to let her manipulate me anymore. I needed to protect Jake and create a better future for both of us, away from the shadows of deception. It was time to take action. The aftermath of that confrontation left me feeling like I was walking through a fog. I had laid bare my feelings, and while I thought I had gained some clarity, the reality of the situation continued to weigh heavily on my heart. Sarah's tears and trembling hands haunted me, but I knew I had to keep my resolve intact. The thought of my son Jake kept me grounded. I needed to protect him from the mess that was our marriage. After we had shouted until we were both hoarse, Sarah eventually retreated to our bedroom, leaving me to grapple with my emotions alone. I spent the night on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. I felt like I was in a war zone, fighting against the woman I once loved. It was surreal. The next day, I woke up with a sense of determination. I needed to act decisively. I couldn't let Sarah's infidelity dictate the future for me or for Jake. I had been thinking about transferring Jake to a different school for a while, but now it felt like the perfect opportunity. If I could create a fresh start for him, perhaps it would help him avoid the toxic environment that was slowly suffocating our family. As I drove Jake to school that morning, I made a mental note to reach out to a few other schools in our area. The last thing I wanted was for him to be influenced by the chaos that was brewing at home. I called several schools during my lunch break, gathering information about their programs and values. One school in particular stood out to me. It had a great reputation, smaller class sizes, and an emphasis on character education. I could already envision Jake thriving there, away from the shadows of my crumbling marriage. When I returned home, I found Sarah waiting for me again, her eyes red and puffy. I could see she had been crying all day, and a part of me felt a twinge of guilt for not being more compassionate. But then I reminded myself of the breach of trust, and the guilt dissipated as quickly as it had come. "Mike, can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, we can," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "But I have some decisions to make, and I want you to hear them clearly." I explained my plan to transfer Jake to a new school, and I could see her face. "Fall, you can't just uproot him like that. He needs stability. What about his friends?" "Stability? You think our current situation is stable?" I shot back, feeling the anger bubbling up again. "Don't you see that this is the best thing for him? I'm not going to have him grow up in a home filled with deceit and betrayal." She shook her head, her lips quivering. "You're being dramatic. We can work through this. I love you, Mike. I want to fix this. But can you? Can you truly fix what you've broken?" I asked, my voice steady but tinged with pain. "You crossed a line that can't simply be erased with love or apologies. Trust is gone, and I can't put Jake through this any longer. I have to protect him." I could see the realization dawn on her. She understood that I was serious. I was no longer the man who would accept her excuses blindly. I was ready to fight for my son's future, even if it meant letting go of the woman I once adored. As the days passed, I began the process of enrolling Jake in his new school. I took him to visit, excited to show him the playground and the friendly teachers. He was instantly captivated, and I could see the spark of happiness return to his face. I felt a flicker of hope that this was the right decision. However, every step I took toward that fresh start felt like a weight against the anchor of my old life. Sarah tried to put on a brave face, but I could tell she was struggling to accept the changes. She would throw desperate glances at me, trying to reconnect, but I remained distant. I needed to put my focus on Jake and my own healing. One evening, as I was helping Jake with his homework, Sarah entered the room, clutching a piece of paper. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began, her voice wavering. "I don't want to lose you or Jake. I'm willing to go to counseling, to do whatever it takes to fix this." I looked at her, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "Sarah, you can't just say that because you're scared of losing us. You need to understand that this isn't just about you. It's about trust, about what you did. It's going to take a lot more than words to fix this." "But I want to try," she insisted, her eyes pleading with me. "I know I messed up. I'll do anything, Mike. Please, just give me a chance." I took a deep breath, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to see her make an effort, but another part screamed that I needed to protect myself and Jake from potential further heartache. I needed time to think about it before making a decision that could alter our lives again. "I'll think about it," I replied finally, careful to keep my voice neutral. I didn't want to give her false hope, but I also didn't want to shut her out completely. As much as I wanted to hate her for what she had done, I couldn't erase the years we had spent together. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I had made a decision to protect my son, but the journey ahead felt daunting. I had to balance my desire for a fresh start with the remnants of my relationship, and the uncertainty of what the future held for us loomed large. I knew I had to focus on myself and Jake, but part of me was still tethered to Sarah, the woman I had loved. However, I had to remind myself that love alone couldn't heal the wounds she had inflicted. If we were to move forward in any capacity, it had to be built on a foundation of honesty and trust, a foundation that, right now, felt irreparably shattered. The days bled into weeks, and the atmosphere at home was a delicate dance of tension and uncertainty. With Jake's enrollment in the new school finalized, I felt a small sense of relief wash over me. I hoped that this change would provide him with a fresh start, a break from the turmoil that had enveloped our family. He was excited about his new school, which made me smile amidst the chaos. But Sarah remained a looming shadow in my mind, her presence a constant reminder of the betrayal that had shattered my trust. I had decided to give counseling a chance, not for the sake of rekindling our marriage, but to explore whether any remnants of our relationship could be salvaged. I knew that for Jake's sake, we needed some level of cooperation, especially if we were to navigate co-parenting in the aftermath of her infidelity. I begrudgingly agreed to join Sarah for sessions, though the thought left a bitter taste in my mouth. The first counseling session was filled with awkward silences and forced conversations. Sarah tried to present herself as the remorseful partner, while I felt like I was a reluctant participant in a play I didn't want to be part of. The therapist was kind but firm, guiding us through the motions as we discussed our feelings. I found it difficult to articulate my pain without feeling like I was just rehashing the same old wounds. Each time I shared my hurt, I could see Sarah's face drop, the guilt washing over her like a wave. But guilt wasn't enough to heal the scars she had inflicted. As the sessions continued, I felt the weight of her remorseful facade. I began to wonder if her tears were genuine or just part of the act. She spoke of how she had felt neglected, how the distance between us had pushed her toward Mr. Thompson. I listened, but it felt like a rehearsed script. What she had done was unforgivable, and no amount of excuses could change that. Our therapist encouraged us to focus on the future rather than dwell on the past. I grasped at that notion, but how could I move forward when the past loomed so large? I thought about the life I had envisioned for Jake, a stable home, a loving environment, and realized I had to prioritize that above all else. With each session, I felt a flicker of hope mixed with an overwhelming sense of anger. I wanted to believe we could find common ground, but every time I looked at Sarah, all I could see were the memories of her betrayal. It was a constant reminder that she had willingly hurt me and in turn our son. One evening, as I was getting Jake ready for bed, he asked me a question that struck me to the core. "Dad, why don't you and Mom hug each other anymore?" His innocent eyes searched mine for an answer, and I felt my heart clench painfully. How could I explain the complexities of adult relationships to a 7-year-old? "Sometimes, grown-ups go through tough times, buddy," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "But we love you very much, and that's what matters most." Jake nodded, seemingly satisfied with my answer, but I could see the confusion lingering in his expression. I hated that he was caught in the crossfire of our broken marriage. It was a reminder that my decisions had consequences, not just for me but for him as well. After tucking him in, I found Sarah sitting alone in the living room, her face illuminated by the glow of the television. She looked up as I entered, and for a moment we just stared at each other, two people bound by a shared history but now separated by hurt and distrust. "I know this isn't easy for you," she said softly, breaking the silence, "but I want to do whatever it takes to make it right." "I'm not sure you understand what that means, Sarah," I replied, my voice tinged with frustration. "You can't just say you want to make things right. It's going to take time, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to move forward with you." "I'll prove it to you," she insisted, her eyes pleading. "I'll show you I can change, just give me time." Time. That was a concept I was running out of patience for. I sighed, rubbing the back of my neck as I thought about what the future might hold. "It's not just about you changing. I need to see that you understand the depth of what you've done. You hurt me in a way that I'm not sure I can ever fully heal from." As I spoke, I could see the realization wash over her face. She was starting to grasp the gravity of her actions, not just the affair but the emotional fallout that came with it. But the truth was, I was exhausted from the emotional roller coaster. I needed to focus on my own healing, to figure out who I was outside of our tumultuous relationship. A week later, I received a call from Jake's new school. They wanted to schedule a meeting to discuss his progress and settle him into his new environment. I felt a surge of excitement. This was what I dreamed of, a fresh start for Jake. When I told Sarah about the meeting, she seemed genuinely interested, and for the first time in a while, it felt like we were on the same page. We attended the meeting together and I watched Sarah engage with the teachers and staff. Part of me was hopeful that this could be a turning point, a chance for us to work together for Jake's benefit, but that glimmer of hope was short-lived. As we sat around the table discussing Jake's adaptation, I noticed Sarah's phone buzzing repeatedly on the table. She glanced at it but didn't pick it up. I felt my heart race. Was it Mr. Thompson? Was she still communicating with him? After the meeting, I confronted her. "Who's messaging you? Is it him?" "What? No," she snapped, the defensiveness creeping into her tone. "It's just a friend from work." "Really? Because I don't believe you," I said, feeling the anger rise again. "You need to understand that I'm not going to tolerate any more lies." "I'm not lying," she shouted back, her frustration mirroring mine. "I'm trying to fix things, Mike." But her words felt hollow, a stark contrast to the evidence of her actions. I realized that despite my efforts to give her a chance, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still hiding things. I had to protect my heart, and if that meant putting distance between us, then so be it. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a sense of defeat. I wanted so desperately to believe that we could work through this, but every time I tried to reach for hope, I was reminded of the betrayal. I had to take a step back and reassess my priorities. It was time to focus on Jake and my own healing above everything else. I would navigate our new reality, but I wouldn't do it at the cost of my peace of mind. I needed to reclaim my life, and that meant being firm with Sarah about what I needed moving forward. I had to decide if I could ever truly trust her again, or if it was time to cut my losses and seek a future free from the shadows of her betrayal. With each passing day, the emotional toll of living with Sarah weighed heavily on me. I was trying to navigate uncharted waters, balancing my role as a father while grappling with the heartbreak of betrayal. The initial shock of discovering her affair had transformed into a deeper, simmering anger, and I felt like I was on the verge of boiling over at any moment. I wanted to provide a stable environment for Jake, but I was also acutely aware that every interaction with Sarah felt like a reminder of the betrayal. I started to focus on my relationship with Jake, investing more time in our activities together. We went to the park, played catch, and spent weekends exploring the local museums. I watched his laughter and joy return, and for the first time in a while, I felt a flicker of happiness amidst the chaos. Jake was my anchor, and I realized that I needed to be strong for him, regardless of what was happening with Sarah. Despite the growth in my bond with Jake, I couldn't ignore Sarah's attempts to get back into my good graces. She continued to attend counseling sessions with me, always eager to demonstrate her remorse and make amends. But for every step she took toward reconciliation, I felt myself pulling back further. I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she might still be hiding things from me. One evening, I returned home late after taking Jake to a dinner at a friend's house. As I walked through the door, I immediately sensed something was off. The house was unusually quiet and Sarah wasn't in the living room where I expected her to be. I called out her name, but there was no answer. My heart raced as I made my way to our bedroom, feeling a chill creep down my spine. As I approached, I saw her phone lying on the bed, face up. The screen was unlocked and I instinctively picked it up. My heart pounded in my chest as I scrolled through her messages. What I found sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through me. There were texts between her and Mr. Thompson, flirty banter, inside jokes, and a message that made my stomach drop. "Can't wait to see you again. Last weekend was amazing." I felt as if the ground had been pulled out from beneath me. I had given her another chance and she had betrayed me again. Rage consumed me, and I slammed the phone down onto the bed, my hands shaking. How could she do this to me? To Jake? Just then Sarah walked in, her eyes widening in shock as she saw my expression. Mike, what's wrong? I couldn't hold back. I found these, I said, holding up her phone, my voice trembling with anger. How could you do this again? Her face paled, and for a moment she stood frozen, clearly caught off guard. That's not what it looks like, she stammered, attempting to regain her composure. I thought we were working on things. Working on things, I echoed incredulously. This is the second time I've caught you, Sarah. You're still in contact with him. How can you expect me to believe anything you say? Mike, please let me explain, she pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. I don't want to hear your excuses, I exclaimed, my voice rising. You had your chance and you blew it. I can't keep doing this. I won't keep doing this. She broke down, sobbing as she realized the gravity of the situation. I'm so sorry. I thought I could manage it. I thought I could end it. I just didn't know how to tell you. Tell me, I nearly shouted, the hurt spilling out of me uncontrollably. You thought it was okay to keep this a secret. You clearly don't respect me or our family. At that moment, I felt a wave of clarity wash over me. I realized I couldn't stay in this toxic environment any longer. I had given her too many chances, and each time I was left with more heartache. I had to think about Jake's future and my own sanity. I can't do this anymore, Sarah, I said, my voice calmer now, but the pain was unmistakable. I'm done. I'm transferring Jake to his new school, and I need you to respect that. I don't want to live like this. It's not healthy for any of us. Her face fell and she reached out to touch my arm. Mike, please don't do this. We can fix this. We can make it work. I love you. But the words felt hollow and I shook my head. Love isn't enough this time. You've broken my trust twice. I can't live in a constant state of uncertainty. You need to find your own path and I need to find mine. With that, I turned and walked out of the room, leaving Sarah in tears behind me. I felt a mix of relief and sorrow wash over me. I had made the decision to protect myself and my son, but it didn't come without its emotional cost. I knew this would ultimately lead to conversations about separation, conversations that would be painful and complicated. The following days were filled with discussions about what separation would look like. I consulted with a lawyer about the logistics, trying to ensure Jake would be shielded from the chaos as much as possible. I wanted to navigate this with as much grace as I could muster, even as the emotions continued to run high. Sarah remained desperate, trying to reach out to me through texts and calls, expressing her sadness and pleading with me to reconsider. Each message felt like a stab to my heart, but I remained firm in my stance. I couldn't let her pull me back into her web of lies and deceit. The day I finally moved Jake's things to our new home felt surreal. Watching him excitedly explore his new room helped to ease some of the pain. I wanted to create a space filled with love and support, one where he could feel safe and happy. And as I unpacked, I felt a sense of empowerment. This was a new beginning for both of us, free from the burdens of the past. That night, as I tucked Jake into bed, we read one of his favorite stories together. I watched as his eyes sparkled with excitement over the characters in the book, and I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was my focus now, ensuring that he had the best possible life, no matter what had transpired between Sarah and me. As I kissed him goodnight, I felt a renewed sense of hope. It would take time to heal from the wounds of betrayal, but I was determined to forge a new path. I would face the challenges ahead with strength, for both my sake and for Jake's. From this moment on, I would prioritize our happiness and well-being, and nothing would stand in the way of that. The weeks following the move were a whirlwind of adjustments. I focused on settling into our new home, creating routines for Jake and me that felt comforting and secure. Each day brought new challenges, but also opportunities for growth. I found myself taking joy in small victories, Jake's laughter echoing through the house, his excitement over new friends at school, and our bonding over movie nights that stretched late into the evening. But amidst the joy, I couldn't ignore the emotional aftermath of my separation from Sarah. Each interaction we had was like walking on a tightrope, balancing the need for civility as co-parents with the unresolved hurt that lingered between us. We had agreed to keep our communication focused on Jake, but it wasn't always easy. There were moments when she would attempt to reach out about us, and I had to remind myself that I couldn't afford to be pulled back into that emotional turbulence. I needed to maintain my boundaries for my own peace of mind. One evening, as Jake and I sat on the couch watching a movie, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Can we meet to talk about Jake? I think we need to discuss co-parenting schedules." I stared at the message, feeling a mix of emotions. I knew we needed to talk about practical matters, but the notion of seeing her again sent a familiar knot to my stomach. I took a deep breath and replied, "Sure, let's meet at the park tomorrow after school." The next day I arrived early, determined to stay composed. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the playground where Jake was swinging with his new friends. I watched him, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude for his happiness. As Sarah approached, I felt my heart quicken. She looked different, more put together than I'd seen her in weeks, and yet there was still an edge of uncertainty about her. "Hey," she said softly as she reached me. "Hey," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "How are you?" "Surviving, I guess." She offered a weak smile and I nodded, feeling an urge to soften, but then reminded myself of the hurt she had caused. As we sat on a bench, we discussed Jake's schedule, extracurricular activities, and the upcoming parent-teacher meetings. It felt surreal to be having these conversations with her again, navigating the logistics of co-parenting while the emotional wound still ran deep. "Mike," she began hesitantly, "I wanted to say that I'm really sorry for everything that happened. I know I hurt you, and I'm trying to understand how to make things right." I looked at her, searching for sincerity in her eyes. "I appreciate your apology, Sarah, but understand that it's going to take time for me to heal. I need to focus on Jake and finding my own footing right now." "I understand," she nodded, her voice breaking slightly. "I just hope one day we can be friends again, for Jake's sake." I considered her words thoughtfully. As painful as our past had been, I didn't want Jake to feel caught in the middle. "I hope so too," I replied, keeping my tone steady. "But right now, we both have to work on rebuilding trust and creating a stable environment for him." As our conversation continued, I noticed subtle changes in Sarah's demeanor. She seemed genuinely devoted to the idea of co-parenting, and I could see a glimmer of the woman I once loved, a woman capable of growth and change. It was hard to reconcile that with the betrayal I had endured, but I realized that holding onto anger wouldn't serve me or Jake. Over the next few months, Sarah and I fell into a rhythm. We maintained clear communication about Jake's needs and managed to attend school events together without the weight of hostility hanging over us. I felt myself begin to let go of some of the bitterness, leaning into the possibility of a new dynamic. One weekend, Jake invited Sarah to join us for a picnic at the local park. I hesitated at first, unsure if it was a good idea, but Jake's enthusiasm was infectious. "Please, Dad. I want us to be a family again just for a day." So I agreed. The three of us set up a picnic blanket under a large oak tree, and for a moment it felt like a slice of the family life I once cherished. We laughed, played games, and shared stories. Watching Jake bounce between the two of us, I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps with time, we could create a new family dynamic, one that didn't revolve around the past but instead focused on the future and our son's happiness. As the sun began to set, casting a beautiful orange hue across the sky, I realized I was feeling lighter than I had in a long time. I'd faced my demons, made difficult decisions, and prioritized what mattered most. Jake was thriving, and despite the pain that had marked our past, I could see the potential for healing and growth on the horizon. Reflecting on everything, I realized that while the road had been rocky, it had led me to a place of clarity. I had learned the importance of setting boundaries and standing firm for myself and my child. Trust is a fragile thing, and while I knew it would take time to rebuild with Sarah, I was ready to embrace the journey. I could now look toward the future not with fear, but with a renewed sense of purpose. My focus was on Jake, on providing him with a loving and stable environment, and on nurturing my own growth. I was determined to find happiness, even amidst the complexities of co-parenting with someone who had once shattered my trust. In the end, I learned that life moves forward, sometimes in unexpected ways. The challenges we face can shape us, but they don't have to define us. I was ready to embrace the future, one step at a time, for both my son and myself.